our September Stammtisch, and traditionally we have students that we've assisted at times, report on their travels. So we're always interested to see how the students have fared. We'll have two presentations, one about Leipzig, and actually it's Leipzig und
München.
und Graz.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And Graz, as you know, is the home of Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So we have a monthly program. In October, we're having a presentation here called Historic German Churches in Minneapolis by Lee Little, who is a local attorney. And then on November 9th, our program is not going to be here, but it's going to be at the Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library, which is in the 500 block of Indiana Avenue. So it's right up against West Street. I can't remember the exact address, but it's at West Street and Indiana Avenue. And our program is there because Kurt Vonnegut, of course, is the famous German American from Indianapolis, and often has references to his German American film. And they've been in that building now for about 2 years, and we're anxious to see it. Then that's November 9th, December 15th, which is Thursday. I repeat, Thursday, we're varying from our regular schedule. We'll be at Carmel, at the Carmel Christkindlmarkt. And then our program there is going to be our annual Weihnachtsliederkranz und Christbaum. It's all one. So we're going to sing the best Christmas music ever, right? Because we invented it, right? And also want to participate in the Austausch, the exchange, bring around a present, an ornament, $5 to $10 of value, put it in the big laundry basket, and then you can take one out, take it home with you, and unwrap it and see if it's all worthwhile. We're not doing anything in January. We're going to take a break. February 8th, our program is going to be about Bruno Schmitz. Schmitz was the greatest monument architect in Wilhelmine, Germany. But his career starts here in Indianapolis. The social sailors are like this. And then another activity is German American Day is going to be at the Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library on October 6th. October 6th is German American Day. And then, which is a Thursday. And on the 9th, which is Saturday, will be German Fest here at the Athenaeum outside. So enough of those announcements. And if you're not a member of the German Heritage Society, let's join. I want to introduce Louise Hibner. She is originally from the south side of Indianapolis, the south side. And for 5 years has been teaching German at Ron College. And I got a little joke about that. I was at a secondhand store, and my son was buying stuff for camp. We found this jacket, and it said RCHS. And so I said to my son, "Do you know what that means?" Because I know that was my high school, Rushville Consolidated High School. Well, there's another guy in the room looking at stuff at the secondhand store, and he volunteers the answer: Ron College High School. I'll never forget that moment. Anyway, so Ron Colley High School. She's a graduate of Ron Colley, and then went to IU, BA at the Germanic Studies and Language, and then an MA in Education at Marian University. So I'll turn this over to Louise, and she'll introduce our two speakers. And thank you for coming. Thank you. Louise?
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the nice introduction. Good to see lots of new faces. I am a recent new member of the IGHS of the society, so it's very nice to come back. Sort of homecoming. Being up from the South Side, but this is actually the first meeting that I've attended as a German teacher and not a German student under the wonderful direction of Janet Price at Ron Colley. So first off, I would just like to thank all the members of IGHS for providing funds and support for, and kind of, you know, visual representation for exchange programs like these and others. I don't know what other programs are popular in the Indiana area or south side of Indianapolis, but GAP has been a longstanding program at our school for about 10 years. We are a GAP School of Distinction at Roncalli. That means that you have to have at least four mutual exchanges with the same partner school. And GAP itself, the German American Partnership Program, is now in its 50th year as a national program. It's actually the longest bilateral exchange between the US and another country, of any other foreign country. So it's a well-established program. We've had it at Roncalli for about 10 years. This is my first exchange that I have attended with students. So Ansley Bishop, you say hello to the people. Hi. Ansley is a current senior at Roncalli. She's in my AP Advanced Placement German class, so it's the highest level that you can attain at German. I call her the cream of the crop. You can sit down and focus. She's a great student, works hard, very involved in a lot of activities, and was gracious to make time in her busy schedule to find, you know, to give up her summer to go to Germany. The point is, it's a great program. Students go abroad for 2.5 weeks in our exchange. They stay with a host family. They attend a German school with their host sibling. They might have more siblings in the family, but they attend a high school with people their age. So Ansley, I'm sure we'll talk about her host sister and kind of what that connection meant with someone who's maybe not so different from us, memories that she'll take, and kind of the anticipation. The nice thing about the GAP program is that it is a two-way exchange. So the Germans in that program come visit us just in under 2 weeks now, so September 26th. If you have a chance to visit Roncalli High School, we're trying to kind of publicize that and get, you know, kind of that visual representation past our school. So those students will be coming to visit us and stay with host families and go to class with their partners, which is very exciting. Yeah, so I'll let Ansley take it away to tell you a little bit about this trip.
All right. So as Frau Hibner already stated, I went on the GAP trip over the summer. It was, we'll just round it up, say a 3-week exchange. And to be honest, it was probably the best 3 weeks of my life. Just being able to go to a different country and to like see all the like similarities, but also all the differences between me and some other high schooler. It was just absolutely amazing. And I met so many great people on that trip. And it's so exciting. I'm sorry. It's like a little like geek moment. So on our first day, on June 6th, we flew out from Indianapolis to Detroit, and then from Detroit to Berlin, Munich. Yeah, it's Munich. Mm-hmm. And so that entire trip, although long, I was so like giddy the entire day. And I remember sitting next to one of the teachers on the trip, and she turned to me and said, "Okay, I love you, but you need to calm down for a second." And so that's me and Mandy Sorensen in the top right photo, or I guess your top left. And that was probably one of the first photos I took on the trip. And it's just like crazy to see, because even though I'm wearing a mask, you can see how like giddy and excited I am. It's great. So when we finally flew into Munich and got to our hotel, this was the city we were staying in. We were in downtown Munich. And so here were just a few of the buildings that we saw. The first thing we did while we were there, we went on a 3-hour walking tour, which although we were tired, we were just all there. We were ready for it. And so here's a group photo of us in front of one of their big monuments, and they have this clock right there. And so we were able to watch the clock go off. And it was like a cool 30-second presentation. The entire like square was just filled with people, like you couldn't move anywhere. But once that bell rang, we all just turned our attention, just watched it. It was so cool. And yeah, here's some more photos. The photo down at the bottom is just a photo of some of the architecture from Munich, and it was just absolutely beautiful. We don't have anything in Indiana like it. Whoops. There we go. So on our second day, we went to the Neuschwanstein Castle, and here is me and Mandy, who are best friends, so she might appear a lot in some of these photos. But here was us at the castle. It was just absolutely incredible. It was breathtaking, and it was like bright and sunny for most of it. When we got out, it was all dark and cloudy, but For the first part, it was absolutely beautiful because it overlooked like this lake and all this greenery, and they had some extra castles around the area too. And it was just absolutely breathtaking. You could see a little bit right here. Like the photo does it no justice. I could have sat there and looked at it for hours on end. The water was so clear, you could see like all the lakes and stuff. It was great. So we were able to go in on a tour around the castle, and they gave us like headphones so that those who were listening in English, or those who only understood English, could listen to it in English, and those who only or who were more capable in their German abilities were able to listen to it in German. And I wish I could have listened to it in German, but at that point in the trip, we'll just say my German wasn't the best. And so we just listened about this, the history of the castle and all the different architecture and art and the king that lived in there. And we actually were able to go visit his crypt the day before. So it was really cool to just see everything connect. And so the next day we ended up going to the Dachau concentration camp. And so I'm a big fanatic on like learning about World War II. And I know that sounds terrible, but there's a reason for that. So I love learning about it just to see like how the hope of somebody can like still prevail despite all these like oppressions and all these different circumstances that you would usually find no hope in. So I was in a way excited to go to Dachau just to see how, like, just to be there and to like actually experience it. Because you see it in the movies and you hear about it, but it's not the same until you go there. And so this was the courtyard of the entire concentration camp. And the moment I stepped in there, I was just taken aback because you never realize just like the impact one space has. It was absolutely gigantic. And I cannot imagine like what a Jew in one of these concentration camps, or one of the victims, better to say, in these concentration camps would have gone through. And so going through the entire experience, you can see one of the jails they had at the camp, one of the layouts of the camp, and then some of the bunks that the victims had to stay in. And I'd say that the Dachau concentration camp did a great job at reclaiming their experiences for themselves. They didn't let their oppressors stop them. It turned the whole scenario into a way that was like, I'm giving you hope. This is what we need to do. I'm not going to let oppression stand in my way of my progress, which was absolutely beautiful to see. And although it was horrifying to walk into one of the cells or into one of their gas chambers, it was just so impactful. And I don't think I'll ever forget the impact that that experience had on me, just to see everything. And so the next day we had more so of a free day in Munich. We were able to go shop around their city centers. They had some funny stores. So they had a lot of tourist traps, but then they had one store in there called TK Maxx. And I don't know why, but the entire group just freaked out about it because we were like, oh my gosh, we have TJ Maxx. This is like so cool. It was literally the exact same thing. we still loved it. And one of our friends bought like this cool little train hat. And so we were just joking about it the entire time. And so for lunch, a few of us ended up going to the Hofbrauhaus because it was right by where we were, and we were able to have like a German lunch. I ordered like this bread assortment. Frau Hibner got some Käsespätzle, and it was just so cool because it had the live band playing too. And so I'm in band and I play trumpet. And so just listening to them, I was having just like an absolutely like moment of awe. I was so impressed. I was like, oh my gosh, they're playing music. And so then after that, we ended up just walking around some shopping. There was some of the meals we had over the course of the time there. And the bottom photo in the corner is me at McDonald's. Let me tell you, that's some culture shock. Everything there, fresher, better. After I can't have McDonald's now in America because of it. So on our last day in Munich, we decided to go to Olympia Park, and here's some of the pictures of it. It was originally like the Olympic Stadium for when the Olympics were in Germany. And so then after they converted it, because they're not just going to let all this land go to waste, so they converted it into this park for everybody to go watch and go tour around and stuff. And they had some trampolines going on. They had a place for a concert. They had these water boat rides. It was so cool just to see like what they did with all the space, like miles of bike trails and everything. It was so beautiful, as you can see, just clear skies. There's some of the water, and I could have spent like the entire day there, to be honest. Mandy and then one of our other teachers, they ended up feeding geese while we were there. That was pretty cool. They were like texting the group chat. They were like, guys, we just found geese. And then they're like snapping us photos of all of them. It was great. And yeah, so that was our basically our week in Munich. And so then here's our train ride to or from Munich to Leipzig and Markleberg. And here's us with our host families and meeting them for the first time. And so on the train ride, as we got closer and closer, all of our nerves began to build and we got more and usually like more nervous. And usually I'm a pretty like confident person. Like meeting new people isn't too like scary for me. But once I got like 30 minutes within the trip, I started like freaking out. It was so bad. And then me and my friend Lily, we made this list. It was called 8 things that we shouldn't do for this trip to go well. And it was the dumbest thing ever. It was like, don't break their toilet. Don't hit a child. I don't know. It was just the most random things ever. But it was like, if worst comes to worst, don't do this. And honestly, it just helped me prepare. It was just a funny story that I'll always remember. Just me sitting there freaking out on the train right there. And so here was one of the views we had while we were driving by. And again, like they don't have cornfields just sitting there miles on miles. Like they have beautiful landscapes and everything you see is just gorgeous. And so once we got to Leipzig, the train pulled in and we all on the train, we just started gasping. We're like, because we saw all their signs and stuff. And it was just so beautiful because it's like you finally meeting somebody from another country who you've been talking to for days and months. And you're just so excited to finally get to talk to them in person. And I'm pretty sure the other people on the train thought we were crazy just because we were gasping randomly at a train station, but that's whatever. So here is me with my host sister Stella. She was one of the nicest people I've ever met. And so I went home with her, we went to the lake, and then the next day we woke up for school. So here was in essence our like what we went through with school. This is what their setup was like. So the first thing we saw when we walked in was this huge banner that like hang 2 stories down. And it was just cool because it had all of our names on it. And we walked in, we're like, oh my gosh, they care. And so, like we were not expecting any, I don't even know what I was expecting, but we were not expecting that. It was just so cool to see everything. And so then we go into like our little homeroom class and these 5th graders come in. They ended up giving us a tour of the school. And so on one of the walls, they had this mural of like some famous American pop culture celebrities like who they had LeBron James, Bruno Mars, Marilyn Monroe, and all these people. And I remember Zane, he came up to me, he was like, guys, they know all of these people. So it was just like really cool to see how like Western pop culture and history can like just like go across seas and it's still prevalent in different areas, which you just don't expect necessarily just because we don't hear about their like superstars and stuff so much. So it's kind of culture shock there. And so here was one of the drawings we had on the whiteboards. It was so sweet. We walked in. That was another like heartfelt, and we're like, oh. And so here's a few of us were able to go to a class and teach them English, and they were able to teach us German. And so we were playing like this board game where they were able to ask us questions in English. And so we worked on their English with them, and then I'd respond in German. They'd be like, oh my God, your German's so good. I was like, I know that's a lie, but it's okay. I'm going to take this compliment. So then here's one of my friends, his name's Joe. We were in a environmental science class, and we were able to do an experiment with elephant toothpaste. And so we were able to put on these lab coats and stuff, and we were just freaking out. I don't know why. They like let us do stuff, which I thought was absolutely cool. And so then in the bottom corner, here was us explaining like American geography to the students. And I was explaining to one of them that you could go in one state, you could go 8 hours from end to end and not be in a different state. And they were like, their minds were absolutely blown just because Germany is like so much smaller compared to them. I was like, yeah, it would take me a solid 3-day trip to get from one end of the country to the other. And they'd be like, no way. I'd be like, way. It was so cool. And all the 5th graders are so nice too. So on our first excursion, we were able to go canoeing. And so it was like the mixed group. So all the Germans and Americans were together. And here's just some of the photos we took. It was a great day, great experience. We were all just having a ton of laughs. And that was probably the first time I like spoke to people in the group who weren't my host sister. And so I spoke to some of my friends as exchange students and stuff. Although my German was very, very limited at this time, it was just cool to like have a full-on conversation with them, although it might have been severely butchered. So then our next excursion, we were able to go on this cooking class with them. So we paired up in our group. So here's our entire group. We paired up with Germans and then Americans, and we walked through this entire like cooking course together. And so I paired up with Stella, my exchange student, and we ended up, what did we make? I think we made, it was this like vegetarian like style of meatballs. It was so good. Like this place had like, I don't know, I guess 5 stars on Yelp if we compare it to something in America. And so after we made all our food, it was so much fun. It took us like 2 or 3 hours to get through, but in the end, it was worth it. Then we were able to like eat everything we had made. So we had a full-on lunch, 3-course meal, and we were able to sit like facing each other. So we divided up Americans and Germans, and so we all like mixed together. And just being able to talk to them, like, because again, in the canoeing trip, we started talking, but we hadn't like actually started like getting to know each other. So this was probably the first time we were able to get to know each other, and I got to learn a ton of things about Talea, one of the exchange students, and Lada, another one of the exchange students, and we just talked back and forth, and it was great. It's a little awkward at moments just because we were all sitting there and we're all new, and all these teenagers don't know how to interact, but it was great. And so then one of our next excursions, we went to the Leipzig Porchwerk, or the Porsche Museum. And so we went into the factory and we were able to see like how the Porsches were made, the different types, and learn all these cool information and stuff. And it was in English too, which was really helpful. So I understood this one. And so after we went through the entire like trip, or after we went through the tour of the museum, we were able to go to this platform where they have like displays of cars, and it more so displayed the history of everything. And so we obviously had to take this opportunity for a photo shoot. I mean, come on. How many times are you with these cool like cars? Porsches lined up, awesome. So here's some of the photos we took. You can see the red, orange, yellow, green, like they had them like at least 7 different types of Porsches. And Noah, one of the kids in the group, absolutely loved Porsches. So it was just cool to see how everybody like, you might not have loved like cars or anything, but even I was so like interested in everything. And then we just goofed her off, like messed around in all these Porsche cars and had a great time. So then on Friday, this was Friday, the first week we were with our exchange students, it was a busy day actually. So the first thing we did, we went to the US consulate, and we were able to talk to Consul Toko about just like anything really. We asked him questions. I asked him about diplomatic policies, his favorite types of pizza in America, and like things he loved to do in Germany, and like why he chose this trip. And we ended up taking the entire 2 hours just asking him questions, because the more we talked to him, the more interested we got, because you got to see information from both sides, because he lived in Germany, he lived in America, and we'd only been there for a week. So it was really cool to just see how he was able to provide a different perspective on everything. And then he allowed us to go take a photo, and it was so cool. So then the next thing we did, we took a bus to downtown Leipzig, and we ended up going on the scavenger hunt. And so we divided into groups, and there were 3 other like partners in my group. So it was me, Lily, and Zane, us 3 Americans, and then our host sisters. And so some of the things we had to go do were like take photos with sports memorabilia. So we found like this football or the soccer store, and then we found this woman wearing this really cool blue shirt, and we were like, hey, you want to be in our photo? And so we got a photo with her. And I might just say that got some creativity points right there. Here's one of the other groups down in the corner. They also apparently found the same store that we did, so I guess that's kind of cheating. But then one of the other groups, in the last ditch effort, we had to get all these balloons. So my group, we found like this one balloon. We're like, all right, Ron, we're gonna be first. And so we get there first. But then the second group comes trotting up with this huge line of balloons, because they go into one store and they ask one of the store clerks, we're like, hey, can we have your balloon like arc? And they're like, okay. And so they're like walking around downtown Leipzig with this entire display of balloons, and people were just laughing at them, but they're having a great time. And so then we also went to one of the churches that Matilda, one of the German exchange students, attended. And so she gave us a like tour of the church and then explained some of the history and like facts about it, which is really cool. And she was able to provide perspective because she does like videography for the church about like how they were able to do masses and stuff through COVID and quarantine and all that. And so it's cool to just see her present over something that she was so passionate about. And so then after this entire week, we have one full weekend free with our families. And so Stella, let me tell you, she's one of the most like outgoing people I've ever met. We did about everything under the sun. So Friday night we go and I spend the night at her like stepfather's house and I meet some of her cousins and they're some of the funniest people I've ever met. We were sitting there playing cards, just laughing the entire night. And so I spend the night at like that house. And then the next morning we go to this amusement park and, you know, because we have Universal and they have their own like amusement parks. It was just cool to see like the differences between them because it caught like the size of it was probably at most a quarter of like our Holiday World or something in perspective. I was like, man, America might not always be better, but it is bigger. Let me tell you that. And so we went to this amusement park. It was absolutely great. Sunny, got a little bit of a tan, so that's a plus. And then after, we ended up going swimming and hanging out at her stepfather's house. And then we go to this concert. And this concert, it's by Fury and the Slaughterhouse, which I'm like, okay, it's an interesting title, but we'll rock with it. Let's see where this goes. So we show up to the concert. It's in this like beautiful park. And it's like a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds just out there with like a beer in hand having a great time. So I'm looking around the crowd and seeing everybody jam. I'm like, this is amazing. I love everybody here. And I ended up actually adding a few of their songs to my playlist just because I thought it was so cool. And so now every time that song comes on in my playlist, I'll be like, oh, remember that one time in Germany? And so then Sunday comes, we end up going back to Stella's apartment and we're sitting there and she hands me this pretzel. She's like, I need you to try this. And so I'm like, okay, it's a German offering me pretzel. This is perfect. And so I eat it. Then I get through about half of it. Then I realize there's butter in the middle of it. And usually I'm not one to freak. That's a lot. I'm one to freak out about very small things. And so I was sitting there having like a total conniption, like, oh my God, there's pretzel and butter together. How is this possible? And so I'm like freaking out about this for like a solid 5 minutes and they're just laughing at me because, you know, that's great. But it was honestly so funny. So here's some more photos. Here's the amusement park. And then here's some of the photos that I had from the concert. And so then Sunday comes after I ate the pretzel. Later that day, we ended up going whitewater rafting in this little place. Like when I'm telling you, we did everything under the sun. We went here to here to here to here. It was great. I loved it. I was tired, but it was great. And so we went whitewater rafting. And her brother Natan also went with us. And it was just so much fun. We were like laughing and joking the entire time. And this was about the time where it was finally to start having like full-on conversations with them. And my German started picking up and I was able to get faster. And this moment was probably when I was able to speak to her mom. And so to clarify, the first day, her mom could not talk to me. I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying here. And so then she started asking me about my family because, you know, we'll just keep trying it, see where it goes. Because hopefully my German would get better if I'm staying in Germany for like solid 3 weeks. And so I talked to her mom and she asked me about my family and my, like, what I do in America. And I like, oh my gosh, it's like my glory moment. Like I'm able to figure it out. And so I have this full-on conversation with her about everything. And it was probably the coolest moment I will ever have in my life, just being able to speak with somebody else in a different language. Like I didn't think it'd be that impactful, but it was. It was so cool. And so after we go whitewater rafting, great time, we go back home. And then Stella calls up some of her friends. She's like, hey, you want to go to the lake? So like, sure. So we ended up going to the lake for the rest of the day. Here's a photo of Joey. He was one of the Americans in the trip, wrapped up in his little blanket. And so to preface this, I got a story for you. To preface this, I should say everything turned out we're all good. And it's actually probably one of the best memories I have, but I'll explain that. So we're sitting there and we leave, or we have all our bags in one spot. So we leave to go swimming for a bit. And so me and Noah, we leave our stuff there with the others because we're like, okay. And so we go swimming and we come back and we we're hanging out, and then we go get food because we're getting hungry, and at this point it's about dinner time. And Noah goes to run and grab his glasses, and it takes him a little bit. And by like 5 minutes later, he comes back and he's like, guys, my bag's gone. And so we're all like, I'm sorry, what? And we like half of the group just sprints and takes off to the place, and they're like starting to panic. And so I'm standing there, I'm still in line. I'm like, well, we can't lose our spot in line. Like, we're 2 people away from getting like French fries right now. So I stay in line, and then we get our food. Stella comes running back. Thank God, because I was not about to order in German. Probably should have. I actually did, I did the day after, because I was like, can't let that happen again. And so Stella comes back, we order, we get our French fries, and we go back. And I'm thinking on my way over, I'm like, well, if my stuff's gone, there's nothing I can do about it now. Boy, was I right, because I walked back and my stuff was gone. I was like, awesome, cool, love that. And so thank God I didn't have like any of my passport or my vaccination card in there, because I don't know how I would have gotten home. But I did end up having my phone, Apple Watch, 20 euros, and like my change of clothes. So I was sitting there in my swimsuit and my like little shoes were like, this is great. And so I don't know why, but I was just like incredibly calm throughout it. I like my phone was old, so kind of had to get a new one. But and so we're sitting there, everybody's like freaking out. I'm like just making jokes. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that person wanted to just call their mom on like their spare time. And so I'm making jokes, and then we eventually call Frau Hibner, and everybody's like panicking around me, and I'm like, this is about right. And so eventually, like, we kind of just are like, okay, what can we do now? Might as well just go home, and then we'll go to the police station the next day. And so Monday rolls around, and we end up going to a German police station. And let me tell you, that we were there for 4 hours, but it was so much fun because we were sitting there, and I didn't have my phone. So I turned to Stella, I was like, hey, can I have something to entertain myself with while I'm at the police station? She handed me this children's magazine. So I'm sitting there in the middle of this police station, full on reading this German like kids magazine. I'm like, oh my gosh, a German kid learning about rocks. This is great. Like, it was meant for 7-year-olds and anything. I was doing all the tic-tac-toe boxes. And so I get through that, and I'm like, Frau Hibner, do you have anything we can do? And she pulls out this deck of cards. And so I'm like, all right, we'll take it. So we ended up going through 3 rounds of bologna sandwich. But then we realized because it's me, Noah, and Frau Hibner, because mine and Noah's stuff's got stolen. And also Frau Schenderlein, because we needed an actual German to help us know what's going on. Because you can't really mess around in a police station, believe it or not. And so we're sitting there, and I end up learning euchre in a German police station. Let me tell you, that was fun, because halfway through we were sitting there and I was like full on screaming. I was like, what? What's going on? Come on. It was so bad, but it was awesome. So here's some of the photos. Here's one of the photos of me trying to figure out how to play euchre in the German police station. That's us by a few of the signs. And yeah, so that was basically Monday. Just your normal Monday in Germany. Got my phone stolen when got questioned by a German police officer. Great. So then on Tuesday, we went to Dresden. And this was the moment where I like actually got to know all the Germans in the group. And so like I was sitting there, we were dancing, and they played this song called Kika Tanzalam. And it's basically this song for 7-year-olds about vowels. And so the chorus goes like, A, E, O, U, du gehörst mir dazu. And I shared it with Cordelia once I got back, because I thought it was absolutely amazing. And so Bata and Matilda, they're sitting there and they're doing this full-on dance to the song while we're in the middle of like Dresden. And it was so much fun. We were sitting there laughing. And so we went on a tour of a church. We walked around this really cool plaza and castle. And some of the Germans gave us like tours of everything. And so then here we also went through a VR art show too. And so on one of our last days there, we ended up going bowling. And we were just sitting there messing around, and apparently you could actually like win bowling pins. And so Mandy and Joey and Noah are like sitting there holding up their bowling pins for first, second, and third. We were sitting there. It was all lighthearted, but we were sitting there like, America, just the entire time. I swear it wasn't bad taste. And so then there's a photo after we go and get food. And so there's a photo with Joey waiting for his food, holding up his bowling pin. And then after we get bored, so we're sitting there waiting for the checks to come in. We're like, do you guys know the Cotton Eye Joe? And so they're like, no, what's that? And so we're like, hold up. And so we go. One of the parents puts the Cotton Eye Joe on their car and we turn it up all the way. And we ended up teaching them the Cotton Eye Joe, the Macarena, and then the Cupid Shuffle. And then we did the Kika Towns Alarm song again. Like when I'm telling you that song's on my playlist, the Kika Towns Alarm is on my playlist. It's American now. Perfect. We're just getting all the cultures in here. So then on our final last day with our host families, we ended up going to the lake after school. And I was just sitting there talking to them. So here is Talea, and then there is Lotta. And oh my gosh, we were just sitting there having a great time. We were talking about, it was something stupid like, I literally, it's been 3 months. I literally cannot, and that makes me annoyed. Anyways, sorry. So here's us. The boys are like off swimming in their lake. And then me, Lily, and Clara, and apparently Joey, we're all sitting there and we're talking, we're having a great time. And we're playing music and just laughing. And honestly, that's probably one of the like parts of that trip that's going to stick with me the most. Just sitting there, being able to like have full-on conversations with these like native German speakers and being able to understand what they're saying, interpret it, and then present like my thoughts on the topic in another language, which is so cool. And just to be able to see the progression of my speaking skills throughout the entire course of the trip, unbelievable. So we had to wake up bright and early at like 5:30 to go to the school. And then we took a bus to the Berlin airport. And then here's us on our way back. It was so sad to like part, and I was like partially crying throughout the entire bus ride. I was like, please take me back. We got to like through TSA. I was like, don't let me leave. But yeah, now I'm here back in America, planning my next trip to Germany. And so I just say, like I said at the beginning, I'll say it again. That was the best 3 weeks of my life. I got to meet so many cool people. I'm able to like have full-on conversations with German people, German native speakers, and just the progress that I made in those 3 weeks is absolutely incredible. And I would not trade anything in the world for this trip. Thank you. Oh.
Does anyone have any questions?
Oh yeah, do you have any questions?
Last questions, because your speakers up there, maybe you could restate their question for the people. That are
Okay.
Yeah, so you went to the police station. Did anything come of that? Or was that just for insurance or story?
Yeah, well, actually, I just got a letter in the mail. Wait, what? Repeat it. So she asked what came of me going to the police station. And actually, I got a letter this week from the German police station saying that we were not able to identify who stole my phone, but it was all in German. So initially, my parents got it, and they thought it was from Frau Hibner, and they're like, "What is this?" And then they kept like looking through. They're like, "Oh, it's addressed to Frau Bishop, like Frau Anza Bishop," and they're like, "Oh, this is not it. This is legal documentation." And so we have the letter actually, if you guys want to see that after. But it's like, yeah, sorry, we're not able to get your stuff back. Yeah.
Luckily, that's why you have trip insurance, though.
Yeah, we did get insurance claims on it.
Germany was in a drought this summer. I saw that you went whitewater rafting. Was there any white water?
He asked if there was any white water since Germany was in a draft, if there was any white water in the. Sorry, it's been a long day. Since there was a drought in Germany, he asked if there was any white water in the whitewater rafting, and no, it was just like this entire like roll, like it was made by, so it was by a lake, and they had like machines and electronics that were able to like push the currents in a way to mimic whitewater rafting. So they had these like drops and dips and stuff, but it was like all controlled and safe.
So my first question is a comment.
Yeah.
It's great that you're a Buffalo. You would never apologize for that. You don't need to apologize for thinking that's awesome. Since you are and you went to Dresden,
Mhm.
how did that place move you from your perspective as an interest in World War II, given all, I guess you could say, evidence of the war that's in the city of Dresden?
Mhm. So he asked, since I'm a World War II history buff, or like the impact that Dresden had on me while I was there with everything that had happened there. And honestly, I was like in awe with everything that happened, because it's like you walk around, you see all these like memorials and stuff, but you're like, there's no way something like this could have happened, because it's just beautiful. Like everything's repaired and new, but they still pay homage to it. It'd be like going to Gettysburg if Gettysburg wasn't like a memorial, like the town outside. Like everything's new, there are monuments to it, but it's like it never happened, which is like really just kind of not confusing, but like I was taken aback by it. Like I was very impressed with how everything was, but I was definitely having like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like one of those moments while I was there, just to see like history in real life.
Have you ever read the book Slaughterhouse-Five?
He asked, have I ever read the book Slaughterhouse-Five? And I can't say I have.
You should, because it's
Oh, no.
about the firebombing in Dresden, written by Kurt Vonnegut from Indianapolis.
I'm gonna have to read that now.
Usually read that in grade 12.
Any other questions?
After being immersed in the speaking German, like for 3 weeks, did you get to the point, or maybe you already were before, where you were thinking in German
Yeah, so
rather than thinking in English and then trying to translate?
So she asked if after being in Germany for so long, if I started speaking or thinking in German. And I noticed that after I came home from school, because I talked to all of her friends, and I talked to Stella only in German while I was there on the trip, because I Snapchatted her. I was like, hey, do you mind if we only speak German while I'm there? Thinking I could actually do that. And so then I actually get to Germany, and she only speaks German. Like her entire family only speaks German to me. So the first week was kind of painful, or the first 3 days was painful, but then it slowly started to get better and better. And I started picking up that like after school, I was able to just like think in German, and like hearing English would just kind of sound weird. And so I texted our little American group chat. I was like, guys, I can't think in English anymore, but I can't speak German. What language am I? But yeah, I like started just processing everything in German. For the trip was coming back to Atlanta and being able to understand like all the signs and stuff.
What was the size of the school compared to College? And were the classes very similar there, or was there something different?
So he asked about the comparisons, the similarities and differences between Roncalli and the school I attended in Germany. I'd say their school is bigger. It was because Roncalli, it doesn't have like as many students as like a Carmel or a Santa Grove, but like Leipzig was or Markleberg was a fairly small school. So it was really impressive to see how they have like all these skywalks and buildings just across. It was like, how big would you say it was? It was like a solid 3 or 4 stories tall. And then 3 stories for sure.
Actually, it's 4.
Yeah, it was just gigantic though. And I turned to Stella, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, your high school is probably more like High School Musical than ours is, not like, to be honest. But then the classes were so much more like, they were so different compared to Roncalli's, because we run on like a solid, like you go to periods 1 through 8 every single day. But theirs was a block schedule, but you didn't go to like, there was no pattern. And so there was no pattern to what classes you'd go to. So one Monday you'd go to French, biology, chemistry, and history. Then the next Monday you'd be at like German, English, and French. And I sat there, I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what class I'm in. This is great. But I ended up attending like 6 different history classes at one point. And eventually I was able to piece together what was actually going on, because it was like 6 consecutive lessons. I was like, okay, yeah, I know what the BRD and the DDR are. And so it was just cool to see like everything. But I'd say their classes were so much different. It was like 90 periods compared to our 45, which threw me off. Any other questions? All right, and I should probably say that I didn't mention this, but me losing my phone, that although that might have happened, I got some of the best experiences out of it, and like I can't be mad or anything for me losing my phone like that. It just brought me so much closer to some of my friends and to some of the other students and teachers there, and like the memories I have from that are debatably some of the highlights of the trip, just because I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe at some points.
And you got a new phone.
Yeah, and I got a new phone. So yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So a nice segue to Cordelia Ebley's presentation, which is about a different kind of exchange program. It is actually a nice segue because, as I mentioned, the GAP program is a two-way exchange, and our GAP partners, 9 of them will be coming back because we had some students graduate since traveling in the summer. We'll have them come to us and we'll host them in less than 2 weeks. And so Cordelia is taking over one of the Germans that a graduating student from America has left to her. So Cordelia is very, very blessed in the fact that she gets to partake of both of these programs, which are kind of focused on different things. A gap exchange is 2.5 weeks, and so it's kind of dipping your toes into the culture. You get the host family experience. It's not a language immersion program per se. There's no rule like we won't send your child back if we hear them speaking English, but obviously it's encouraged. The other program, the IUMAC program, or the Indiana University Honors Program in Foreign Languages, that is an intensive program. So it's 6 weeks in a foreign country. They offer France, Spain, Mexico, China, and Japan, and Austria in Chile. I actually am an alum of this program back in 2011. Thank you, Prof. Price. Yes, we spent many a lunch periods giving up your meal time to practice my German with another nervous high school student who was just like, how do I greet my host mother? Do I call her mom? Is that weird? Which is, I mean, it's part of the experience, like being nervous for someone who you've met for the first time and being nervous for someone you met for the first time in another language just kind of intensifies the nerves, but it also intensifies the gratification. Once you hit that moment where you start thinking in another language or where you realize, oh, I can understand everything they're saying to me. So as an alum of this program, back when I was in Germany, it was in Krefeld, Germany, they moved the program site, but it is very cool to see one of my students continue the tradition of going for an intensive German-only program to Austria. Ironically, I've also studied abroad in college a couple times. Once at the Universität Freiburg, the warmest city in Germany. I just really know how to pick these sites. The other site was Graz, so I did a summer program with a host family, not the same family, thankfully, but I did sing Edelweiss with my host father. I just want to put that out there. I got into this business of speaking German because I'm obsessed with sound music. That's not really relevant, but it was impactful, and clearly it's paid off. It's paid off well. Anyway, it's very cool. I can't say how cool enough it is to see my students go on experiences and have such meaningful experiences over the summer as young people. And Cordelia will tell you a little bit more about what the 6-week intensive experience was like for her.
Yeah. So Servus and Grüß Gott. I'm Cordelia. As Russ said, I went to Graz in Austria, that is just below Germany, and I was in Die Steiermark, which is one of the southern states, if you will. First of all, it was an amazing experience. I can't thank everyone at IGHS enough for giving me the opportunity to study abroad there, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. So GAP is what we would call an Austausch program, where people go both ways. IUHPFL is a one-way, so I was that one-way person. I am the person who went from America to Austria. And as Frau said, the goals are different. GAP is more of a cultural exchange. IUHPFL is more focused on intensive language learning. So not to say that I didn't get a cultural component. I very much did. It was incredible. I got to live with a wonderful host family, Die Familie Eigner. I had 2 host sisters and a cat. I don't have a cat in America. It's pretty cool to have a pet. I really enjoyed that. But my experience was more, I would go to class Monday through Friday. We would get there around like, and it wasn't like traditional, like, oh, I'm gonna go to my classes now and I'm gonna walk around the school building and my teachers are gonna give me homework. It was a little bit more like, I would come around in at 8 and I would hang out with all, like, there were 14 of us, we're a pretty small group. We would hang out and then we would have a few classes and then we would get released to go to lunch and we could do whatever we wanted. And then we would later come back and then we would do something for the day. And these were like little mini trips that we would have, little mini excursions that we would have where we kind of got a glimpse into Austrian culture and their history. So these are 2 of those experiences. The first photo is of a castle, Schloss Egberg, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's wonderfully preserved, and it was built by a very old family that was rich there. And they were good friends with the king, and they were kind of like rulers down here, and they would like keep things in control. And they built this castle just outside of the city, and we got to tour it, and like, I don't know if you've ever like seen photos of like those really old castles that have like murals everywhere. Like there's murals on the ceiling and it's like a picture of all of the seasons. Like they were really interested in like the relation of the seasons, months, days. It was super cool to see. And then like, I'm Christian. So then there were also depictions of Bible scenes. So like there was Samson and Delilah at one point. And like, I wasn't able, this was pretty early in the program, I wasn't able to understand a lot of what they were saying, but like I was able to infer what was going on based on these pictures. And it was really helpful to be able to like look at this, but it was also really interesting to see that Austria is predominantly a Catholic country. So like you kind of see that reflected in the art that they had. And it was really interesting to see that. Also, as someone fascinated with architecture, it was super cool to be able to see this kind of really old architecture and like see how they designed their rooms. We got to see a few pieces of furniture that were extremely old, and like we don't get to see that in America, so it was just super cool to be able to see that. So if that represents kind of like the older side of Austrian culture, this photo represents the newer side. I don't know if you've ever looked at pictures of Graz in Austria, but one of their very famous buildings, other than all of the gorgeous red roofs, is the Kunsthaus von Graz, their art house. It's a modern art museum. And we were just walking around in it, and there was this exhibit on this upper floor that had a bunch of handcuffs hanging from the ceiling, and it's modern art. So we were all kind of like trying to interpret, like, what does this mean? What could this mean about modern culture? And then Ron, like, we're all sitting down and we're messing around with the handcuffs, like, oh, haha, I have chained myself to it. And Ron gets himself stuck, and we're like, oh dear gosh. Now we have to go find a key because there are no keys hanging from anywhere. So we go over to a security guard and we're like, excuse me, sir, my friend has locked him in these handcuffs. Could you please like give us the key to get him out? And he goes, I will in 5 minutes. The artist has requested that anybody who locks themselves in takes 5 minutes to think about what they've done. Consider that you locked yourself with modern art, and then we'll let you free in a bit. So we had to sit there and we were all like, and all of this interaction happened in German, maybe like week 3. So like our German's getting better, but having to go up to someone in a totally new language, like not totally new, I've been learning for 3 years, but to go to someone in a different language other than your normal language and be like, excuse me, my friend has locked himself to this, please help me. Like that was kind of stressful at first, but like I've had more weird experiences. You get more used to it. You get more used to going up to people and just utilizing that language. So we also had like bigger trips. So we had some that I just did with my host family. Over here is me and my host sisters, Jenny and Vanessa. We were at Das Tierberg, and it's like this giant zoo that's on a mountain, and you take like a ski lift up to the top. And then you get to walk down the mountain looking at all these local animals. It was very cool to get to see that like wildlife component, because like we were kind of close to the city, so we didn't get to see all of the wildlife that they had to offer. So it was very cool to get to see like oh, the wild foxes and stuff. It was awesome. And like while we were there, we got to eat schnitzel and we were eating it. And I was like, I'm really surprised that they have fries with this. And my host mom was like, they tell you that we eat it with, that we eat schnitzel with like sauerkraut and stuff all the time. But we also eat it with French fries. Like, don't let them fool you. We like French fries too. The people who tell you that we only eat it with schnitzel, that's the stereotype of the stereotype. So it was just kind of cool to get to see that, like breaking the stereotype, like, yes, we do eat that, but we also have this. The second photo is from a trip I took with the program. It was in Wörthersee, which is this beautiful alpine lake. And this water looks very fake. But I promise in life, it's like that same gorgeous blue, and we got to swim in it. And this photo was taken like on a boat while we were sailing around getting to a village to eat. And then we landed in the village and there was like this giant car show going on, and there were like Ferraris and Porsches around. And we were like, we didn't plan on this. I hope there's place for us to eat at a restaurant. And like, we were very thankful that we did get to eat. We would have eaten anyway. We were thankful that we got a restaurant to eat in, and like, but it was just super cool to be able to walk around and see like what they have like for festivals. Like we may have like an Oktoberfest or something, and they have Oktoberfest clearly, but like cars are big for them. So like maybe you can draw that parallel between like Indy 500 and whatever German fest or like Austrian car festival this was, because we had no clue it was happening. We just stumbled into it, and it was super cool to be able to see. So you guys might have noticed that the number of people in Indiana speaking German is probably getting smaller. Like there are people like us trying to keep that alive who really value that skill, but a lot of people are going over to Spanish. So as a reflection of that, like small yet mighty group that wants to keep that alive, my friends and I adopted the symbol of the hedgehog, that's the eagle, as our like mascot, if you will. And like it was just kind of like a really fun thing that we had. Like whenever we were in our classes, there would be someone bought an eagle. Eagle is hedgehog in German. I will say eagle. I can't look at that and say hedgehog anymore. Someone got a little eagle stamp, and they would like walk around, and they would like walk up to you and look at your work, and then they would just put an eagle on it, and then they would walk away. And it was just like really sweet little things like that. But so we had classes. You can't just have all of the fun little trips. Our trip was at its core something for learning. So we had a literature class, a phonetics class, a grammar class, and a culture, literature, phonetics, and grammar. And so you would have 3 classes a day. They were taught by 2 teachers. One of them is a Indiana high school German teacher. The other is an IU PhD student. Both of them were extremely qualified. Like if we ever had any questions, we could go to them for help. If we ever like wanted to know something, or if it was like we needed our instructions to get somewhere, they would help us out. And it was great to know that like you can always fall back on someone if you really need that help. Like with them, they would organize like all of the little mini trips that we did. So like one day we went to the Zeughaus, which is like an armory. And it wasn't like a modern armory. It's like an old armory with like actual suits of armor from when people were like 5 feet tall, and that was tall. And so it was really funny because we had my friend Nick, who's like maybe this tall. And Nick is as tall as these suits of armor for men who are going into battle. And this was like the standard height. And Nick was like, I've never been so tall in my entire life. This is amazing. And like while we were there, we got to hold long swords, first of all. We got to hold a few kinds of swords. And it was like, I'm holding the sword now, watch out. Like, it was super cool that they were like, yeah, you can just hold the sword that's from a few hundred years ago. Like, it's all good. We have all of those all the time around here. It was so cool to be able to hold that piece of history and to be able to get so close to it. Additionally, like Anthony, I'm a bit of a history buff. I think the Holocaust is morbid but fascinating. And so like walking around in Graz, I don't know if they had this in Germany, but all of the sidewalks are paved in cobblestone. And sometimes we'll come across a little like golden or brass cobblestone block. And on it, it would have the names of some people, and then it would have name of a city, or the name of a concentration camp. And it would be like there used to be Jewish shop owners that lived here. There used to be a Jewish family that lived in this building, and they were taken and they were sent to this concentration camp. And I think it would say like if they lived or died, and sometimes it would say where they live now. And it was very nice to see that they were trying to keep that part of their history alive. It was disheartening to see how many of them there were. Like you don't really think about like in a big study center like that, how many Jewish people there must have been. And to see like that visualized everywhere you go was kind of heartbreaking. It was also really interesting. We had a Russian Jew who was also on our trip with us, and he was very passionate about the history of the Holocaust and what happened to his people. And he was talking about like how Graz actually had like a concentration camp kind of outside or in one of the towns near it, and how it isn't talked about a lot. And I wish I'd gotten to learn more about that, but you know, it's on me that I didn't ask more about it. But it was really interesting to see like they aren't erasing it, they're acknowledging it, and it's really great to see that they're moving forward from that. One of the trips that I got to do with my family was a trip to a cave. And it was very interesting because the man who was giving us the tour of the cave was like, this is the cave where my grandparents stayed during the bombings of our city. And I was like, they did what? And he was like, yeah, they would come into this cave and they would come in pretty deep and they would hide here. They would lock this one door so that like if Allied powers came in, like they wouldn't like break them in and do anything bad to them. And it was just really interesting to see, because this was a mining area. It was really interesting to see them using this area to protect themselves. And it was a very cool piece of history I'm glad I got to see. But another great thing about that experience was that in that cave, it was one of the first times that I really understood what people were saying to me. This is a man who's telling me about ancient cave bears, a woman in the cave named Peggy, who's the oldest woman ever found in Austria. And like, it was just all of these random facts. And I was able to understand all of it. And as someone who went over there really nervous and just kind of anxiously nodding along with everyone, with what everyone said, because I couldn't understand it, it meant a lot to finally understand what was happening and to really like be able to engage in a conversation with someone and ask questions. Like I was able to compare that cave that we were in, Mammoth Cave, because in Mammoth Cave, they used to keep like people who had tuberculosis down there to help them because like the air there is good for breathing. And it was super rewarding to get to like apply what I'd learned and to see that like I wasn't feeling all of the progress that I made. And like that day, I was like, oh my gosh, like I really have made a lot of progress and this means a lot to me. This is incredible. So at the end of the day, the main things that I'm really taking away from this program are a newfound sense of independence. I don't think I've said this, and I don't think Ross said it. When you go on this program, they take away your phone. And as someone who's had a phone for the past 2 years, which isn't long for someone my age, it was like kind of like really scary at first. Not because like I couldn't text people, that didn't bother me that much. What bothered me was like being in a city and not having these apps to tell me like, yes, you can go here and then hop on this train and go home. That wasn't an option for me. I had to know exactly where everything was. I had to like, and if I didn't know, I had to ask someone. Terrifying. There was one day where I got on my bus and like I missed my stop. And I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do now? This is awful. And like I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do. And eventually like this is kind of awful. I really panicked. I couldn't find my host mom's phone number in the tiny flip phone that they gave me. And I started walking home on like the side of the highway, if you will. And it was a very bad choice, I will say that. But I was only one stop away and I was like, I can make it, it'll be okay. And I'm walking back and then a car stops next to me and I was like, oh dear God, I am about to get kidnapped. And my host sister rolls down the window and she's like, Cordelia, do you want to come home with us? And I'm like, that would be wonderful. This is kind of traumatic. I would like to not walk on the side of the road anymore. So they picked me up, they took me home and it was all okay. And I'm so glad that of all the things that I messed, like of all the times I messed up public transportation, my host family was there to catch me, even though like it wasn't my first instinct to like panic call them because I hadn't had a real phone. Like showing myself that after that I had no incidents with the public transport system, showing myself that I could learn how to use that really meant a lot to me because like I consider myself generally a pretty anxious person who cannot use stuff like that. Like if I had my phone right now and I had to like hitch a bus at the beginning of the summer, I would have said like, I probably can't do that. Like I'd mess it up somehow. By the end of the summer, I was just given instructions on a piece of paper for how to get to a university, to go to some tiny shop in it. And I could do that on my own. Like to me, that's a huge growth and independence, and I'm really proud of that. I already mentioned immense growth in language. I wouldn't say I'm fluent. I know that there are still a lot of things I have to work on, but the fact that I am now passable in German, and when I came back, my aunt who's from Germany, I started talking to her and she was like, really, your R's are Austrian. And I was like, I do not know what that means, but I think that that's a good sign of that I've seriously picked up on some things. And finally, the last thing I'd like to touch on is cultural exchange. My host family was absolutely amazing. I was really lucky because first of all, I had 2 host sisters that I got to learn from. And then I also had 2 host cousins that lived really close by, and my host grandparents lived next door. So like there was one day where my host sister and I, we went over and we both had cookie recipes and we both baked each other cookies. So I baked her American cookies with a recipe that has been in my family for a while, and they baked traditional Austrian Christmas cookies, and we got to share that. And that was just a really cool chance to exchange something. And then another time, my host grandma was really into playing cards. And do I need to play Rummy? Yeah, it's an awesome game. I'm a big fan. We're playing, she starts explaining to me this game, and I'm like, this is a slightly modified version of Rummy. And so I pick up on this game really quickly. I'm having a great time, and I start shuffling cards the American way, which is to say I have 2 hands of cards, I fold them together, and then I do a bridge. And my host grandma had never seen this before, and she looks at me and she goes, Cordelia, did you learn to do this in Las Vegas? And I was like, I can't gamble yet. I can't go into a casino. Like I've been to Vegas, but that isn't where I learned this. My dad taught me how to do this. And so something that's very common in America was just totally new for them. And it was really cool to be able to give them like that little glimpse into American culture, like something that's really small that they're going to remember forever. And then at the very end of the trip, my host grandma was like, Cordelia, I have a friend who's in the hospital right now, and I really want her to be able to see you do this because it is so cool. So she said, may I please take a video of you shuffling cards? There's a video of me out there awkwardly smiling and shuffling cards. And I hope that there's some old woman in a hospital that got that and that made her smile. And then I started teaching my host cousins how to do it. And I really hope that they figure it out because it's such a cool thing to be able to give someone. Because like when I tell you, people would, like they would be sitting there and they would just watch me shuffle